We're counting down to the midterms with control of Congress at stake. Election Day is a week from tomorrow, but so far 21 million Americans have already turned in their ballot, according to the U.S. Election Project. Thanks for joining us for this Commitment 2022 special, a preview of Election Day in Missouri and Kansas. I'm Laura Moritz.
And I'm Chris Ketz. First up, the race for Kansas governor. First News co-anchor Cody Holyoke spoke with Democratic incumbent Laura Kelly and her Republican challenger Derek Schmidt for our weekly public affairs program, Heart of the Matter.
The Kansas governor's race could come down to the wire. The most recent poll shows a statistical dead heat, with incumbent Democrat Laura Kelly up 2 points over Republican Derek Schmidt. And there are a lot of undecided voters in play. So what's the strategy here?
You know, Derek Schmidt stood by Brownback's tax cuts to our schools.
Governor Kelly has tried hard to link Schmidt to the policies of former Governor Sam Brownback, whose tax cuts crippled school funding. Schmidt doesn't want to hear it.
The mistakes that may have been made by people many years ago are not what Kansans are worried about right now.
Meanwhile, he's spent much of his campaign working to tie Governor Kelly to President Biden and rising prices.
You know, the governor doesn't want to talk about the fact that the leader of her political party, President Biden, is taking this country and affecting this state in ways that are tremendously negative.
Kelly says she's focused on Kansas, not the federal government, pointing to economic development and a plan to provide families actual relief, slowed by Republican state lawmakers this year.
What I did for that was to eliminate the sales tax on food, and I wanted to eliminate it all at once, right away. The legislature wouldn't accept that.
Instead, the 6.5% food sales tax will be phased out over a number of years, starting in January. But Kelly says if reelected, she'll get a bill introduced again to eliminate the tax altogether. Abortion is another big issue for voters, especially after the August defeat of the Value Them Both Amendment. Schmidt has said Kansas needs to respect that decision, but didn't really answer me when I asked if he'd support further limitations passed by the legislature. Do you support more restrictions, though?
I think the focus has to be on those already on the books. I think what is likely is that folks who oppose those already on the books are going to be bringing challenges in court, and I think that's where the focus really is going to be.
Kelly, a Democratic governor in a red state, rarely talks about abortion rights, but perhaps for the first time this election season, she said she'd stand up against more restrictions.
And that women have every right to bodily autonomy as men do.
So you would veto any new limitations that would come across your desk?
Most likely. When
it comes to their first 100 days, if elected, Schmidt wants to sign a bill Kelly vetoed last year, banning transgender athletes from competing in girls' and women's sports.
It is just Kansas common sense that people who are biologically male should not be competing in sports that are reserved for people who are biologically female athletes.
Medicaid expansion is high on Governor Kelly's list. After 4 failed attempts, she says she'll never give up on getting a bill through the state legislature and to her desk. And she tells me this time, she believes Republican roadblocks won't be a problem.
Let's not kid ourselves. I will never be on the ballot again. And so, giving me a win like that will be gone. That motive is gone.
Our roundtable of journalists discussed her statement on Heart of the Matter Sunday.
That is a really interesting thing to say, that you're actually going to be more effective as a political leader because they can't get a win on you. What an interesting posture to have to take to be a bipartisan governor, to be a Democratic governor in a Republican state.
Yeah, it's one of the few times when anybody's ever come out and said, I'll be a lame duck and that's going to help me.
It's an interesting move to try and remove any legislative friction. We'll see if that strategy pays off on Election Day. For Heart of the Matter, I'm Cody Holyoke, KMBC 9 News.
Don't miss Cody's extended interviews with both candidates. It's all online right now at KMBC.com. Just click the Heart of the Matter tab.
Derek Schmidt's political career began in 2001. He was elected to a state Senate seat from southern Kansas before becoming the Attorney General in Kansas in 2011. Laura Kelly also has a background in the state Senate, representing part of central Kansas from 2005 to 2019 before winning the race for governor in 2018. The candidates now have picked up key endorsements in recent weeks. Governor Kelly has the support of labor unions like the AFL-CIO and education groups like the National Education Association. Derek Schmidt has support of business groups like the Kansas Chamber of Commerce and ag groups like the Kansas Farm Bureau. The most recent fundraising numbers show Governor Kelly raising $1.5 million between January and July. Derek Schmidt has raised $707,000 during the same period. Now, this does not account for outside spending, which is significant in this race. Candidates are required to report their most recent fundraising numbers to the FEC by the end of the day.
In Missouri, voters will pick a new senator to replace Roy Blunt, who is not seeking a third term. It's between Republican Eric Schmitt and Democrat Trudy Busch Valentine.
Schmitt, of course, is the Missouri Attorney General. He's filed court cases against the Biden administration, a key theme in his campaign. In the last 20 months, Schmitt has filed 25 lawsuits against the administration, challenging policies like COVID, immigration, and moratoriums on new oil and gas permits.
And I'll tell you right now, inflation, I mentioned earlier, it is not an act of God. It's not a tornado. It's the direct result of more spending trillions of dollars in declaring war on American energy. Trudy Busch Valentine, the heiress Valentine, has signed on to all of that. She is campaigning as the 51st vote for that agenda, and I think Missourians deserve to know that.
Democrat Trudy Busch Valentine campaigned in Kansas City over the weekend. She went door to door in a neighborhood near West 37th and Genesee after meeting with supporters at her local campaign headquarters.
We need to lead with integrity and with decency and with respect and with good common sense. We have to stop the fighting. We have to stop the divisions in our country. It is hurting us so much.
Missouri Scouts surveyed more than 1,000 likely voters last week. 51% support Schmitt in the Senate race, 42% support Busch Valentine. The margin of error is 3 percentage points.
Missourians will also vote on whether to legalize recreational marijuana. Missouri Amendment 3 would allow people over the age of 21 to buy pot. It would also expand the number of dispensaries by establishing micro licenses for low-income and disadvantaged applicants. But critics say there's no method to help them get started.
So as long as marijuana remains a Schedule I narcotic, those people who do get micro licenses would not have access to any sort of bank funding because banks can't fund marijuana related industries, no access to federal funding, Small Business Administration funding. They would have to be privately funded.
I mean, no matter what, any new entrant into an established market is going to find it difficult. That's there's no doubt about that. There's not really anything a law can do to change that.
This amendment would also establish the right to enforce fines. People caught smoking in public could be fined up to $100. People caught with more than 3 ounces would face a $250 fine for the first violation and $500 for the second. And a person with a third violation would be subject to misdemeanor charges and fined up to $1,000. The Missouri NAACP is opposed to the amendment, saying marijuana possession should not be a constitutional crime.
One of the closest House races in the country is the 3rd District in Kansas. Democratic incumbent Sharice Davids faces Republican Amanda Atkins. They took part in a debate last week covering issues like the economy and the pandemic. Congresswoman Davids defended the 3 pandemic relief bills passed during the Trump and Biden administrations. Atkins says the last of those three helped trigger inflation. Davids defended the spending.
I have spent my entire time in Congress trying to make sure that we're getting the relief necessary during a public health crisis to keep people healthy, to keep people alive. I have also supported our small businesses as we tried to keep the doors open.
Here in the 3rd Congressional District, a family is hit. They're paying an extra $8,700 for the same goods and services. And in addition to that, interest rates are going up, as I noted earlier. We're headed toward a recession. It is directly the result of Miss Davids' votes.
Siena College recently interviewed more than 400 voters from the 3rd District in Kansas. People were asked to rank their financial situation, and 18% say they are in excellent shape. 43% say good. 24% say fair. 11% say their financial situation is in poor shape. Kansas Democrats are trying to connect Atkins to former Governor Sam Brownback.
KABC 9's Michael Mahoney looks at the claims made in a recent campaign ad.
Serving Sam Brownback has been good for Amanda Atkins.
Atkins has worked for Brownback and supported him for more than 20 years. She worked in his Senate office, led one of his campaigns, and led the Kansas Republican Party after he was elected governor. Political posts, but not government jobs.
I never received a paycheck from the state of Kansas.
True, but she's a close political ally. As an executive at Cerner, part of her job was being a lobbyist, including supporting a Medical Records Act sponsored by Brownback, Senate Bill 3454, and its House companion, 5559. On her LinkedIn account, she states she helped author it. The bill didn't pass. As Brownback's appointee to lead the state's children's cabinet, she angered some fellow members while preparing the 2016 budget numbers for the governor. Other members say they weren't consulted. Now, Adkins was never a state legislator, so she never voted for the Brownback tax plan, producing big cuts in the state schools, roads, and other state services. Cuts eventually repealed by the Republican legislature. But the main claim that she's a close political ally of Sam Brownback is true. Michael Mahoney, KMBC 9 News.
Atkins' resume says Governor Brownback also appointed her to the state's mental health task force in 2013.
There is a text message scam targeting voters in Kansas right now. It's from an out-of-state group called Voting Futures. The text messages are directing voters to the wrong polling place in their county. We spoke with a woman who got that text message today. She says it's an effort to throw off voters from making their voices heard.
You know, it bothers me to my core, so I want everyone to be informed that this is not true.
Voters are also being told to confirm their polling location before heading to the polls. It's also important to delete those fake text messages from your phone.
Make KMBC and KMBC.com your home on election night. We'll be posting results for all of the races in Kansas and Missouri as soon as they come in.